DDG episode 228. My name is Dave, and I'm joined by Michael.
You got the episode right. I don't even think I updated the doc
I
to
did.
have the new episode. Perfect. That's what we should do. That's your contribution to the doc, is updating that number, because you have to say it out loud.
Yeah. I think I got it before. I think you were on the doc, but you weren't like active on it. And I was like looking, I pulled the feed up and I'm like, okay, I got to change this number.
I was wondering what you were doing at the doc before recording, because usually if I don't tell you like, hey, check the doc out, you're like, I'm going to be surprised.
99% of what I do is ad-libbed off the cuff, just for the record. All the people, like even back in the day when we used to do those interviews or video interviews or podcast interviews, and you can attest to this, you've seen me do these. Like, I don't have a notebook.
Yeah, no, I'm the same way. I never bring a notebook or anything like that. It was always for stuff. Sometimes might have an awkward start, but usually you get in there once you get comfortable.
So, I mean, I just kind of ad lib and kind of just go. I mean, yes, we use our dock, but we use this dock as literally as like guardrails on like a 9-lane highway.
yeah, so, for the most part. Like, and my bullet points I put like are pretty basic stuff for me as I say out the news. But like for Dave, it's like there's a story on here that's big enough that Dave is aware of it before the show. Yeah,
full disclosure, he'll send me a link a couple hours early, or I get assignments from teacher Michael. You have to watch this trailer before we record. I'm like, oh man.
It's like, no, you have to.
All right. We are Digital Days Gaming. We are a weekly podcast that posts Thursday morning, 6 a.m. Eastern time on podcast services. Please consider leaving a review, subscribing, following us on, and however that your podcast service works. If you can leave a review with words, that helps a lot. Also, there are tons of other ways that you can listen to or watch our content. We're live on Twitch, twitch.tv/Digital Days Gaming. As Michael was just reading through some perks, there's a lot of cool stuff. If you subscribe to us, like you can get like Apple TV, you can get like Taco Bell stuff, any of those things. So just check that out. There's more to it than I want to talk about, because I don't want this to be like a promotion for Twitch. Because we're not the biggest fans, but it's an avenue of revenue for us, and it's an avenue for you guys to see and hear us. So it's there. So check that out. Consider checking out those subscription bundles and stuff they have. If you have your Amazon account linked with your Twitch account, you get Prime Gaming, a bunch of free stuff there, as well as a free subscription to a streamer of your choice. If it's not us, please make sure it's another streamer of some kind, just so you're not just sitting on that perk. It's beneficial to a streamer, and it means that Amazon doesn't have to keep any money. And then also you can watch us on YouTube, youtube.com/Digital Days Gaming, where you can subscribe for free to YouTube, and there is no other monetization on YouTube at all, as like there is with Twitch. And then we also have patreon.com/Digital Days Gaming, where you can check that stuff out. All right, and with that, everything else, you can just go to digitaldaysgaming.com and you can check all that stuff out. We're going to jump right into the news.
Yeah, I didn't want this to just be all doom and gloom Bungie thing, so I did throw some extra stories in today. This might have been like the Bungie podcast based on how today was going. But just a quick update, since we like to always talk about Discord and why people should be using it. Xbox
we are right now.
Xbox recently updated their Discord app on the console for, I think it's currently in testing, the Insider program, but usually I would say 99% of the stuff in the Insider program makes it to the actual console. So Discord is now on Xbox, has the ability for you to be able to watch a friend's stream if they're streaming from the Discord app, as well as the ability to be able to just call your friends directly, as opposed to having to use specific channels voice server. And they also added the ability, if people opt into it, to integrate your Discord friend list with your Xbox Live friend list, so you'll be able to see which one of your friends is actually using Discord, which should make things just a little easier organizing that. Because right now on PlayStation, it's just like
it's voice channel or nothing.
The server
it's voice chat or nothing. So which is super fascinating to me, because PlayStation, Sony as a company has invested in Discord, and it seems it's coming, I'm sure, but I just don't understand why my Xbox is getting it sooner. Other than the fact that I think it's just Xbox's UI has more PC elements in it than PlayStation's.
I think more it's like beta testing or an agreement Xbox already had of before
before the
before the
investment.
merger.
Yeah.
Or not merger, investment. Yeah. But these are all cool things. Streaming from Discord. My friends use it on our servers every once in a while because sometimes you don't want to do like a stream to Twitch where other people can see. Sometimes you just want to have a private stream. So it's just like your inner circle watching. So that ability is really nice to have.
I think stuff like this is cool for I mean, it's very niche sometimes, like you've talked about a little bit. I think if you're just off the top of my head, a couple examples. If you're playing like squads on Fortnite and you have like 6 people in the server or 6 people on your Discord channel talking, 2 of them can't play because it's like Fortnite's maxed at 4, so they can watch somebody, while they're waiting for the rotation. Fighting games, Mortal Kombat, Street Fighter, I think they have kind of like the King of the Hill mode and the tournament modes. So I think while you're waiting for your turn in the tournament, it's always kind of cool just to watch somebody. And to your point, some people aren't cool with like fully broadcasting themselves on Twitch or YouTube, so this is a much more like closed environment for this. I'm just hoping sooner or later for full Discord integration on both consoles, of being able to type. And I mean, with phones and tablets and everything now, it's not as big of a deal, but to put the controller down and pick up a phone or a tablet from some people is irritating and annoying.
Yeah. Or as long as you can maybe like type the message on your phone and it'll pop up on the screen for everyone else, just if they don't want people to like interact too much with like the keyboard and stuff like that, the digital keyboard. Like that could be useful. This is just one of those things where like I fully am ready to embrace the Discord monopoly. In terms of like, this is how voice chat should be. This is how you should be able to interact with people in the video game space. So like I appreciate that, and the streaming stuff is pretty good. Again, they're only like broadcasting to select people in your server or in your channel, so it works well for what it does. It's a good tool set, especially sometimes when you're on PC. I'll use it when it's just like. Me and Dave have used it where like something's not working with our settings and the computer, either on his end or my end.
It's a glorified screen share. Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically what it is. So the idea you be able to stream your game content directly is great. There's a lot of scenarios where that could be pretty valuable.
Do you need PS Plus to use PlayStation Party Chat?
Yes, it's an online feature. Yeah.
Okay.
I believe so. Yeah.
So, but like it's like we've been talking about. Like, there's a ton of free to play games that don't require Plus. See, now I got you thinking about it.
No, it's been. The problem is I've had Plus since day one.
That's why I'm just wondering. But I'm with you. It's like an online function. So if you need Plus to use Party Chat, that sucks. I get it, but it still sucks.
You might need it for voice, but maybe not text.
Correct, maybe, but either way. But Discord's free, so. If you're a Fortnite player, I believe you don't need Plus to play Fortnite.
Shit, we're gonna have to find out.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll let my Plus. I think my Plus is finally gonna expire after like 4 years.
I can just test it on Owen's account. Okay, like
but Plus family.
He's not shared though because Jonathan has the other one. We run into this problem all the time. Angela, even on when she wants to play like Thomas Was Alone or whatever, she has problems because my primary console's in Kentucky.
Okay, so we test this theory out, or someone just let us know on Twitter, and we'll discover that. But yeah, these all sound cool. Thank you, Xbox, for beta testing, because I mostly do this on PlayStation.
Same.
So I imagine in like 3 months this will be on PlayStation, and it'll be relatively bug-free. So thank you for beta testing that for us. The next bit of news is SAG-AFTRA is going on strike against the video game industry. So the Actors Guild announced that they will be striking against several video game studios or publishers due to the fight over generative AI and job security. So there's just a lot of stuff where companies basically are asking voice actors to kind of like, give us your voice. We're going to use the clips that you give us, or the audio you give us, and we're going to generate some future actors for this stuff. So there's a lot of discrepancies, like in terms of like working out contracts for how that works and how pay works. Obviously, most actors are against the AI use because it's kind of scary when you think about like performative arts. So there are some companies that are going to be exempt, specifically games already in development before September 2024. They won't have to deal with like actors striking against them. There is some weird situations though where like Grand Theft Auto 6 is exempt from this. That was like the biggest news from this, is like, oh, is this going to affect GTA 6? Because that's the fucking internet. So the internet, it was freaking out about GTA 6 potentially getting delayed, but they said like, no, GTA 6 is safe, though they are still striking against Take-Two, the publisher of
It's
GTA.
probably because most of the GTA voice contracts have already been signed.
No, yeah, that's what it basically is.
Yeah,
It's like that's
so-
why if your game already started development and
Right.
work on voice acting before September of this year, then you're exempt. You can continue to work on it.
If you haven't secured voice actors, if you're a developer and you have not secured voice acting contracts by now, you're probably going to have a problem.
Yeah, and speaking of that, there are some instances. So the union basically said like, hey, if you're a voice actor and you're working on daily contracts, technically you can still do the daily contract if you started work before September, but they are saying to stand with the your union members by not re-signing the daily contract. And I know that sounds kind of
Yeah.
odd to some people that there's daily contracts for voice actors, but there are daily contracts because there's like spot work and stuff like that.
I mean, there are definitely things that I think that voice actors can do in an 8-hour shift. 100%.
Yeah.
So.
And that's basically, and it could be situations where you worked with them 3 months ago and are like, yeah, none of that worked. Can you come in for a day?
Right.
So basically, there could be some instances where some actors won't re-up their day contract or take that day job, even though they already started to work.
This is more on the
prior.
agents than it is on the actors. Like this,
Yeah,
you know, like the agents are the one they're going to have to get to work. So what it's going to come down to is that you're going to see voice actors push on their agents if they're not getting work outside of the video games. This is when you're going to see that happen, especially if somebody's primarily been in the video game industry. Like, I mean, like Troy Baker, Nolan North, like they'll be fine. Like financially, previous financials, I'm sure that they're fine, as well as they have appeared in, you know, television shows. Troy Baker in Last of Us recently, and I'm sure he's been in other stuff that I don't even like correlate that he's in. Nolan North has been in a handful of things too. Those are like some of the bigger names that just pop right into my head. There's tons and tons of fabulous voice actors out there. This is
start
going
naming Uncharted cast. Claudia Black.
Right. This is going to hurt the industry. I'm kind of, like, we've been talking for a couple of months of like, where is the software? Where's the software? And now that we kind of just came out of a writer strike, that hurt the industry a little. This is going to hurt the industry even more. However, I also could see more of I guess I'm trying to think of the proper words. More of a faster influx on those smaller indie titles, because they sometimes don't require as much voice acting, or the narrative that's happening in the game sometimes is one of the lead developers that are just talking.
Yeah, well, I mean, when it comes to indies, usually the indies, their contracts will be way more reasonable, and you're more likely not to have like an indie be like, yeah, we want to have the rights to your voice in perpetuity.
They're just happy if somebody says yes.
yeah. So they're willing to not put AI bullshit in their contract, which means that you could have some like, you might, depending on how long the strike goes, you might end up having an indie game no one's ever like heard of studio getting like Troy Baker, Nolan North, Claudia Black on their cast just because they just want to work. So you could see instances of that. This is going to be one of those things like when we saw with like the television strikes, where you don't see the effect immediately because stuff that's coming out in a year from now has already been shot and is at a different phase of production. But we could see an instance like in 2 years from now where there's a little gap where it's like, where are the games from this time? It's like, oh, you remember that strike 2 years ago that lasted like 3 months? We were affected.
Yeah.
But yeah, this is just another one of those things. I'm sure it's going to get worked out. I could see this being I remember when when actors went on strike, I was surprised at some of the AI stuff being left in those contracts. So I'm going to be curious to see like how much the video game industry, because especially you're talking about a tech industry, how much they're going to fight to want to keep some of the AI stuff, just because you have a bunch of people into technology. They might find it more important for what they do, especially if you look at it came out, college football used AI to get all the face scans of 11,000 players, and it's one of those things where when I heard that I was just like, yeah, that's probably the only way to do what they needed to do, unfortunately. You know, like it's just realistically, like that's the only way to scan and mold 11,000 faces for your game in a matter of like,
especially when 99% of the time you're wearing a helmet.
Yeah, yeah. And I'm just thinking realistically, like, yes, college football has been in development for a couple years, but the college players played last year, if I'm not mistaken. So
Nobody
it's one
that's
of
on the
those
team
things.
last year is not on the team this year. So like this is the rosters are the 2024, the September 2024 rosters.
No, okay, yeah, but I'm saying like they to scan those faces, they didn't have a lot of time because
Right.
those people,
Yeah, yeah.
weren't there potentially a year ago or a couple months ago.
Yeah.
So like they had to rapidly like figure that
Oh,
data
I'm
out.
sure there was some just facial recognition software that was used that they somehow
That
did.
would be the AI,
Yeah.
that did it
Yeah.
all. But realistically, when you look at a college football game, that's the only way that game could potentially happen and come out
Right.
and have like any relevancy.
Yeah, for sure.
So we'll see where this goes, how long it lasts. This could be one of those things where next week we're like, yeah, strike's over, like
Yeah.
sort of thing. Like it doesn't seem like it might be as big a deal. Well, it's a big deal, but it might not be as drawn out as like the writer strike or the actor strike from earlier this year or last year. I forget
Yeah,
when.
something like that, yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, let's go over the big news. I'm gonna go through these bullet points, Dave.
Okay.
Then we'll just break this all down. Bungie lays off 200 people, and PlayStation officially takes over the studio. Bungie announced they were laying off 220 employees, and moving 155 employees to SIE Studios, so across the SAIC Studios like umbrella, and 40 employees will be moved to a new studio. These moves will usher in a new era at Bungie, one that fully integrates them into SIE and puts Herman Holst in control of the studio, according to Jason Schreier and Jeff Grubb. They basically had tweets that matched up everything. The new studio that those 40 Bungie employees will be sent to are going to be working on a new sci-fi fantasy IP that was being incubated at Bungie. So a ton of stuff happening here. Bungie's basically going from, I think, like 1,200 employees to a little over 800. And this is the end of an era. Like, Dave, before you go off, I did see some people saying, like, oh, well, Bungie's been able to break out of, like, their contracts and rebound pretty well, but they aren't in control anymore of their studio. So I don't think there's a Bungie buys themselves out of a contract thing, because Bungie isn't what it used to be after this.
Right. I'm trying to see. I saw today where Grubb talked about Herman Holst. I'm trying to see where Schreier talked about it, because I trust Schreier more than I trust Holst, or than I trust Grubb. Yeah, I'm sorry.
It might have been either in the article or on Twitter, or he might have just said SIE is now in charge of it, and it's basically means Herman Holst.
At its core, like the stuff that I'm seeing today and hearing from some people, hearing as in like watching videos and like nobody's talking to me directly. I do know a handful of people that work at Bungie, but I'm not even reaching today.
It'd be in poor taste to do that right now.
I believe at my core, if Herman Holst had taken over, or Sony had fully taken over PlayStation or whatever, taken over Bungie, that Pete Parsons would not have been the one to release that statement today. And Pete Parsons released that statement today, early this morning, like 10 o'clock in the morning, 11 o'clock in the morning. I think that the only other way that it's possible is that if Parson is required based on the merger to stay a certain amount of time. Part of that, I can't think of the word right now. Keeping the people. Why can't I think of the word? I can't.
Retention?
Yes.
Retain?
Yeah. So that would be the only thing I would think of, because Parsons, on this, like everything that we've heard about Pete Parsons is that he is like just a very condescending person. So and living in poor taste. The other thing that I'm hearing is that these layoffs were initially supposed to be part of the previous layoffs. And somehow they were able to like give them a stay of execution, but they were still inevitable anyways. And we had talked about this before. When they laid off, they went below this number before the layoff 6 months ago, 8 months ago, when the final shape the final shape delay was announced. But then they went way above them again over these last 6 or 7 months, whether those were temporary hires. They hired more people.
The hire, okay.
Yeah, they had a hiring bump after the layoffs to get Final Shape out. So I feel like some of this is recorrecting from that. And if you read that statement that they made too, they're pretty much saying that they can't. They've always wanted to develop 3 games, and they pretty much can't. They've admitted that they can't develop 3 games.
Yeah.
And that's financially they can't do it. Staffing they can't do it, which is connected into financials. So I don't know what this like. I mean, we heard that like Project Gummy Bears, which was another game that was supposed to be like an investment from NetEase, I believe. I think we've heard that was squashed. There's been rumors that there was another. That Destiny 3 was in development, which I guess Destiny 3 could still be in development if you consider that to be a 3rd game for them. I wouldn't, because they would stop doing Destiny 2 and do Destiny 3. And then we still have Marathon hanging out. So like that's kind of where I'm at with this right now. Like this is not a big surprise to me that they're cutting back more people, other than the fact that it just truly sucks that they're cutting back more people. But at its core, and I've said this before, Bungie fleeced Sony when they made this purchase.
It definitely feels more and more like that was the case. I would just say for the Pete Parsons thing, Parsons.
Yes.
CEOs don't get laid off. They get golden parachuted out. So I think the thing that will truly tell us like who's in charge of Bungie is how long he lasts. If he leaves in 3 months, or even a year from now, it's going to be like, okay, he was just there to run out his contract, sort of thing.
And everybody's pointing at like this. I guess at its root, I don't know if this is Sony like forcing it. Like Kyle's been telling me, like, oh, Sony came and knocked on the door and said, hey, pay your bills, and Bungie said they couldn't, and then Sony's like, okay, it's our house now.
Which we knew that was part of the deal.
Correct, but I don't think it would have happened in 6 months, especially like in terms of their revenue goals, like and how well Final Shape was allegedly received, like review wise and sale wise and concurrent player wise. I mean, I don't know, like we'll never know what the number that they had to hit was, but
just the fact that year prior they were down 45%.
Right.
A revenue means that they were starting way behind, so Final Shape would have had to destroyed, and I just don't think Final Shape did.
Concurrent player count numbers say it did, but that doesn't
temporarily
correct. But they would have to buy Final Shape though, which would have generated revenue. Yeah,
but was it enough based on the fact that they started 45% behind the previous year?
And so like those things. Now digging into this other IP. So like, and Michael, you can attest to this. I've been saying this since the purchase happened. When and if Bungie went to Sony and needed help with any publishing for any IP, it became Sony's.
Yeah, which just makes sense.
Right. Destiny is not Sony's. Marathon is not Sony's, like quote unquote Sony's. Like Bungie has creative control over their currently owned IPs. Mm-hmm. So whatever this 3rd IP is, if Sony liked it and said, oh, we want you to continue developing that, and Bungie said, we can't, because, you know, like we have to do this, this, and this. And Sony said, okay, well then we're gonna make a studio for you. None of this happened today. Like this wasn't decided on a Teams call this morning to make this studio. But pointing at a quote unquote a failing studio, why would Sony take talent from a quote unquote failing studio and make another studio with that talent?
So here's where I would probably say that, like, I would imagine you don't remove people from Bungie if you don't feel they're failing or misusing the stuff that they have. So I can see this 2 ways. Like I think the 155 employees being moved to SIE is more damning than the 40 employees being spun off into doing their own project, because it almost makes me feel like PlayStation is like, we really like that talent and they are not being utilized at Bungie enough, or the projects are being taken from them to where it's just like, hey, these 155 people are talented and they have nothing to do, so we are going to integrate them in other studios, as opposed to just laying them off. Like it's an odd move you don't really see, unless Sony's just like, we still are interested in that talent, we just don't feel like they're being utilized at Bungie as well as they can be.
And I guess that's the different world that we're in right now, the remote work world of like, where like, is this person still going to have a desk at a Bungie office? Even, like, do they have a cubicle? Did they ever have one? Because their cubicle might be their couch. That's the part where it gets weird, and like I don't necessarily you know, because like we've said it before. There's somebody, you know, like retro, you know, like theoretically sitting at a Bungie desk working on Concord in some small capacity. I'm sure helping with netcode, helping with multiplayer connectivity, something. Like maybe not, they're not spending like to your point, like you talked about earlier about the 1-day voice contract or whatever. Like maybe they, you know, somebody from Firewalk, well, Firewalk's fairly close to Bungie anyway, so this might not be the best example, but you know, like they're doing something for
Sucker Punch is also really close,
right? For MLB The Show, they're doing some net back working for the stubs.
Oh, please, someone help them with net.
Yeah,
at
you know what
show.
I'm saying? Like, I mean, like there's still like. You're a good coder. You've proven that we've seen some crazy stuff happen with a live service game on Bungie's end where they're able to fix something in 48 hours. So when something maybe not as crazy happens in another Sony studio, they're like, "Hey, call that Michael guy. He can fix it. Like get him in."
And it's an instance where you know, and someone at Bungie is like, "No, we really need him in case we have a big issue with our live service game." And PlayStation's like, motherfucker, look at the concurrent player count right now.
Right, yeah.
and Marathon's not that type of game. We're taking him or we're just gonna let him go.
Yeah, but at its core, Bungie pulled the wool over Sony's eyes because you know, we talked about the price when it happened, and then the price makes more sense with PlayStation being able to hostile take over Bungie. You know, but then at the same time, I just don't. I would think that if that was truly happening today, Hulse would have released a statement today. Hulse would have spoke.
If that statement comes out, the diehard Bungie fans are going to be like, "Fuck this! I'm not supporting the studio anymore." As opposed to the fans that are kind of rallying behind Bungie. But the diehard Bungie fans are already
paying attention today to what's going on, and if anything, Hulse can give off a more positive vibe because right now, if you look on Twitter, like they're just roasting the C-suite people at Bungie. All of them.
Well, because they are a joke right now.
Right.
They've been a joke for like 2-3 years outside of getting a big check.
Right.
But the only problem is Hulse probably doesn't want to come in and seem like the big bad guy.
Right.
Like you don't want to be like, "Hey, I took over and I basically let go of 400 people today."
Yeah. But Bungie got the money, the IPs, and creative control out of this deal. Like, what did Sony get?
Future IPs?
Maybe. I mean, but they don't have Marathon, and Marathon wasn't announced until after the purchase.
Yeah, it's one of those things where I also think this goes back to like why Jim Ryan, after 20 years of success, was told like you should leave, is because they saw this deal and they're like, "What the fuck did we buy? We bought Destiny 2. Sorry, Destiny 2 will never be the biggest thing in the world, you know?" And
Marathon's
like
50-50. It's hanging off a cliff.
Yeah.
And then unfortunately for Sony, based on the reception Concord's getting right now, if I'm Sony, I'm even more scared. It's like you know, like Bungie's a better studio than Firewalk, but you know, like they're obviously like now you're talking about 800 people, less than 800 people working on 2 live service games simultaneously.
Yeah, and Marathon's in a weird thing where sometimes it's referred to as a live service game, sometimes it's not. Sometimes you know, it's referred to as
even a live service game of like it's gonna need continuous patching.
No, but I'm saying like, but right now like Marathon is like the second thing to where like the description for Marathon I feel has changed multiple times to where even like Jim Ryan probably had issues explaining like, "Oh, but this Marathon game's going to be good," because 3 months later it's like, "What is it now?" And it's like, "Oh, it's something completely different."
My concern in 3 years if this trajectory continues is like this, and I've said this before, that Bungie will just be Bungie in name. That's it.
Yeah, it's going to go the Activision route with Call of Duty Studios. And then that's a thing where it's like, it'll be Bungie in name, but I also don't see a scenario where like Bungie reforms. This is one of those things where it just scatters into a million smaller studios.
Like, why can't these 40 people stay working for Bungie and just Sony give them the money to keep this other IP under the Bungie name? Because now this other IP is going to have a different studio name on it.
Yeah, and
why would they take that? Like, I guess, why would they take that away from the Bungie umbrella, which is what I think that Sony wanted on their portfolio. Sony wanted on their portfolio the Bungie name, and then they wanted the Bungie engagement. Whether you like it or don't like it, it moves. It's got waves. It draws interest from board members of like, hey, look at this. When they do this, it does this. It's a fucking tidal wave.
Yeah. And 40 people isn't enough to make a game. So they're going to have to hire up. which again makes me think that Bungie has failed to a certain point, at least with PlayStation's trust in them. Because why wouldn't they just let them not fire 220 people? We don't know where these people were.
Yeah. Even if you made it, call them Bungie : auxiliary.
Yeah.
Like there's so many things that you could have done.
BioWare, how that
yeah, I know. I'm just using a broad example.
No, I know.
You know, it's like it's just kind of one of those things where it just doesn't. None of this really is making any sense to me. And just please, I just hope in 5 years Schreier has a book exclusively about this, just like his next book is going to be exclusively about Activision Blizzard. Like that comes out in 2 months, I think. And I'm like, I'm just super fascinated at that, just for how my head functions and wants to know what happened. And you know, because like, is Pete Parsons sitting in his office today just laughing his ass off because he already got a check and he gets to stay for a certain amount of time and he gets to walk away, and him and Jim Ryan are going to go have lunch somewhere when they're both neither one of them are working for Sony anymore.
I think they're going to have the Dark Knight Rises ending where Alfred and sees him at a cafe. And there's already been like, I don't know, the people have been like taking Pete Parsons like through the gutter because like
he locked his Twitter down.
Because I think it's Kotaku. Kotaku's always
right, which is a terrible look for a CEO of any company to lock their Twitter down.
Yeah, but after they reported that like since the last layoff, in
October,
are you
talking about the car stuff?
Yeah, which is one of those things where it's just like he got paid a lot of money, so him buying stuff with that money is perfectly fine and normal, but it's one of those things where when that comes out, like, you lock in a Twitter account.
I mean, he's also got, like, let's be real, like, he's been the CEO of Bungie for as long as I'm aware.
He's got Microsoft money, he's got Activision Blizzard money, and
Halo.
Money.
I mean, like, he's the guy that directed, like, maybe not directed it, but he's the one that, like,
he was
produced
of the team
Halo.
You know, so he's been spending this money for a while.
Yeah,
it's just one of those things where when people start digging that around and find it, it's just like that's when social media. I mean,
he did Halo, and whether you like it or don't like it, whenever Destiny 1 came out, it like in 2013 or 2014, it set records also for sailing.
But I think this does signal, like, in terms of like this is the second set of layoffs in less than a year, to where this does show a shift at Bungie, like, completely, in terms of just like, while the Grubb thing, Jeff Grubb saying like Herman Hulst is taken over, it's no longer outside of the umbrella like it was before, I think is a reality.
But do you think this is going to be a Phil Spencer, what's his name at Bethesda? I know he left. Hines is left though, right?
Yeah, Pete Hines left. He did like a good year or two with him. And
do you think it's going to be something like that, where like Hulst is going to like do like a fireside chat with Parsons and a stream or whatever, and say like, this is what we're doing. This is what, you know.
I forgot they kind of did that.
Yeah, you know, like this is, you know, so because, or is it going to be one of those things, to your point, where and I would have to dig into this more. Like, did the physical year flip on July 1st? For Bungie or for Sony, you know, because now we're at, so it's not a coincidence that today is July 31st. Like, there's not a coincidence that that's happening. My company's physical year ends today.
Yeah, no, it could very much be like they looked at the finances, and were like, okay, so Final Shape did
XYZ,
well considering numbers were down, but it still didn't hit the goals because you started 45% down last year.
And we've seen post Final Shape, you've seen the cliff. Like the players aren't staying. Like, I'm not naive to it. I'm barely playing it right now. And we're only a month, 8 weeks, not even 2 months out. June 4th or something like June. I don't even remember when it was.
And that could be one of those things where, like, when Jim Ryan acquired them for PlayStation, he was just like, hey, Bungie's consistent. And now with new eyes on Bungie, they're like, this isn't consistent. This is a fucking roller coaster. This is hills, and this isn't worth the trouble.
The lows are too low, and the highs ain't high enough.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's why changes happens. I wouldn't be surprised if this is a scenario where Pete Parsons is just there to see Marathon through.
Okay.
And then depending on how Marathon goes will determine whether he stays or goes. Because it's just one of those things where if they announced Pete Parsons was gone today, with everyone else, then it would have been everything's on fire.
I don't agree. I think people would have been more open, more accepting of it.
I think people would have put the vigils out like Destiny's completely dead, or Bungie's completely dead, and I think that would have been
people
a
are
worse
so
image.
like people are so pissed right now. Anyways, like in terms of, and again, I follow a lot of people that cover Destiny, so they're retweeting. My timeline is filled with stuff, and it just makes my head and my heart hurt.
I just think it would be plus 10 if like the executives at Bungie that have been there forever were axed as well today. I feel like that's just one of those things where it's like it's a band-aid that they're slowly pulling off as opposed to ripping.
I will sit there and I mean I'll put my line in the sand right now. As long as Parsons remains in the CEO position at Bungie, we will not see a dramatic change to how Bungie is functioning.
No, I don't think it I don't think
if he leaves, then yes, it gets kind of murky.
But I think there's a scenario where he stays, but there is a big shift in Bungie. It's just something that we don't see. You know, it
well, based on their statement today, though, their shift is it's Destiny and Marathon. That's it.
Yeah, which is kind of always how I saw them, especially after we heard the NetEase game was killed.
Yeah.
You know,
but I want to know who had to pay that bill.
It was probably part of the 2.3 billion, and we just didn't realize it.
Yeah.
Like there could have been a scenario where it's part of that 2.3 billion.
I think it announced that it was canceled a couple months after that deal.
But that could have been because paperwork needed to be finalized, money needed to be spent.
I'm assuming Sony had to pay that bill. But this is one of those things where like Sony must have been going to Bungie, whatever this other IP is, this whatever they're working on, the sci-fi fantasy IP, whatever it was. Sony's like, hey, we like that, and Bungie's like, cool. Well, like either you have to give us money or we can't make it. And Sony's like, well, if we're gonna give you money, then we're just gonna take it. Like they like.
But I in that same scenario, I would imagine. If you're PlayStation, you would be like, I don't see a scenario where PlayStation can willingly, if Bungie's still in charge, take 40 employees.
Unless they move the Destiny aspect off of it. If this was, like, I've talked about this before, like I want an 8-hour or 10-hour single player sci-fi-ish game within the Destiny lore.
But saying that, like, PlayStation always had the option to pull team members away from Bungie would make me think Bungie was never in charge at all.
Yeah, I mean, I think unless they didn't have a choice, lay off 500 people or give us 200.
But that's also means PlayStation got to determine the layoffs for Bungie
because Bungie went to them for money.
But I still would say that's a scenario where like Bungie was never in charge of anything. Unless you're saying like Bungie's like, we really need the money, so we're gonna negotiate chunks of ourselves.
Yes. Yeah. Like
if I'm PlayStation,
based on what I understood about their merger, though, as long as Bungie continued to self-publish, it's my understanding they are still self-publishing Destiny 2, and they are self-publishing Marathon, which is why Marathon's on Xbox. So as long as they can self-publish without Sony's assistance, they remain in full control of that IP and those IPs. Now, if whatever this third thing that they decided they couldn't make they couldn't make, and Sony can make it, then Sony took it from them.
I would imagine though, like it's a scenario where if you're PlayStation, that would be a horrible way to negotiate in terms of just like you would just want them, not like chunks of an IP or chunks of their staff. If Bungie's like, we need more money, it would be like, well, we need more equity in your company, sort of thing. Then I feel like the pay wouldn't have been 2.3 billion. I almost feel like there's a chance that their whole Bungie lives outside of the umbrella was a lie. You know, and it never was the case.
Well, if anything, not that it was a big enough studio or anything like that, but it might have been a smart strategic thing to keep the FCC away.
Maybe at the time, just to be like they're separate, but that also could just be like one of those things where it's just it's hidden, but it's not factual. You know, it's like it's hidden under business jargon, but in reality, they were always fully owned and part of SIE. Especially when you talk about like being able to pull off almost 200 employees off a company is a clear sign that like something has shifted. That they were able to do that. Like we don't even know how exactly that worked.
The interesting part is like I've seen the tweets today of like I was affected by the layoffs. If you know anybody that's hiring in UI and etc., like please direct link them to me or direct them to me. I have not seen, and it doesn't mean it's not there. I have not seen a retweet or a tweet from somebody that says I no longer work for Bungie. I work for SIE. Like, I haven't seen that.
Yeah, and they might be under a specific order of like,
Right.
please do not brag about this or talk about this until this dust clears, because
Right.
that could be seen in poor taste of like, oh, my coworkers were fired, but don't worry, I'm at Naughty Dog
Yeah.
now.
Right. Or I'm, all of a sudden like, hey, they took 75 people that were on the Bungie team and put them on Sucker Punch. The hell are they doing?
No,
like,
I was
yeah.
going to bring it up before you said something.
Yeah.
I was going to be like, if they pull enough specific people that aren't just like concept artists.
Hey, we don't have to relocate anybody. We don't have to move them. We don't have to like.
It's like, oh, here the whole live service team went to Sucker Punch.
Well, there's three studios in Greater Seattle now: Bungie, Firewalk, and Sucker Punch.
Yeah.
That are all Sony owned.
It's one of those things where, like, especially like I would say, Bungie fans, because Bungie is a studio that there are fans of Bungie. They're the crazy enough fan base that they know names of studio people and what they do and how they contributed to like certain projects. So like if one of those people's LinkedIn's moves, Bungie fans like are like, oh, this is gonna affect the fucking.
Oh, there was talk when Josh Hamrick, one of the head guys of Firewalk, like as soon as he went there, and the handful of people that followed him, people are like, oh, like this is interesting, and then and then
there goes gunplay for my favorite shotgun, and it's just like you.
So, but
psychos.
I mean, like at the same time, like, okay, Michael, if I was gonna ask you, whatever this new IP is it a third-person game?
It's a shooter for sure.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It's probably an FPS, right? Like.
Yeah.
So. And are they still going to put the tail on them from the makers, from spiritual successors of Bungie, or like from like what are they like when Sony reveals this game in 4 years or whatever, hopefully sooner, but there's gonna
people.
There's gonna have to be something, from.
It depends on what the state of Bungie is at the time,
right? So it's like from the from the team that brought you Destiny 2 and Marathon. From like I don't know how you do this.
The big telling thing would be like from the team that brought you Halo.
yeah.
Because they don't want to say Destiny at all.
Right.
They're like, no, Destiny didn't exist. Don't worry about it.
So I don't know. I mean, did these 40 people get a choice?
It sounds scary that you potentially went into work and there were 3 options. You were let go.
SIE,
you were transferred to another studio, or now you're having to make a new studio.
Yeah.
And
of those 3, like, what's the risk? What's the highest risk? I mean, the safest one is to go for SIE, I would think.
Yeah. But didn't you also have to hope that, like, oh, was I put in a weirder spot?
Am I a barrel maker now for Concord?
Or am I being squeezed into a team that's already established,
right.
and now I need to find a spot, and are people going to be paranoid I'm there to take their spot? Yeah. Like, that could be an awkward scenario.
Am I a wave maker for water for Naughty Dog now?
Yeah, especially we don't know, like, and it might be a long time before, like, I'm sure the crazy Bungie people are already scanning the LinkedIn profiles of everyone.
Do I make textures for the MLB
updates.
pants?
Maybe. There could be a lot of different shifts and changes, and we'll probably get a better idea over the next couple days of like where people are moving, who moved, and then what that exactly means. But there's also, I feel like this just delays Marathon even further, because you can't do like a Marathon direct in 2 months without thinking back to all this stuff. So I feel like this just continues to push Marathon back, and then puts Destiny 2 in that weird spot.
Oh, it's already in a weird, questionable spot now, because they just like a month ago like teased like Destiny 2 Frontiers, and then they're supposed to talk again. That'll be telling. Let me look this up.
Is it September? Their next big thing?
Hang on. Sorry, guys. So, okay, my typing sucks. So
it types with 2 fingers. It goes like,
shut your mouth.
It's like
I can't find it right now. So they're supposed to have some. Typically, they talk in late August, early September, about like the next future. The Verge has something here. Seeing if it's at the end here. No Frontiers drop
Man.
of content is on the way. The journey continues. Teaches Bungie. It's not clear what the storyline for Frontiers will contain cover, but it doesn't seem to be the big. So this is what it's it. But it doesn't seem to be the big annual expansion that Bungie typically puts out for Destiny 2. Either way, Bungie is making it clear that Destiny 2 isn't going anywhere just yet, despite speculation over whether or not Destiny 3 is on the way.
But this is a weird spot for Bungie in general, because it's just like, okay, what do we do with Destiny 2? Do we do a Destiny 3, which again is a thing that we were talking about, months ago, of just like Destiny or Bungie needs to go into mode where they shut the fuck up.
Mm-hmm. And
head
they're not
down,
doing that right
work
now.
on this thing. No, and they're not doing that right now. And they need to just let us know what they're doing in the future, and that could take months, if not years. So I don't know where this goes from them. Yeah, I can't find anything on when the next.
I don't know how far I can dig into this because I don't subscribe to Forbes. Paul Task is the one that covers it the most.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's something that they're supposed to be talking in late August or September about what Frontiers is going to be, because they need to build the hype train for people to purchase this or pre-purchase this. They need to do the collector's edition thing, all that stuff. Like, if they're, whether it's a big expansion or not, they don't have announced content after February 2025. And
Yeah.
we're already in August. So, because they already went from 4 seasons to 3 episodes this year. Or actually, I take it back. I'm sorry. This is with the delay of Final Shape. They're covered until June of 2025. Because there's this episode that ends, and then there's 2 other, and they're taking 4 months per season or per episode. So that's 4, 8, 12. So yeah, there is a lot, and with I think they're talking about Marathon for this holiday, right?
No, it got delayed to next year.
Okay. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. It most feels like this now turned into a Marathon was potentially going to be fiscal year, so it would have been like before March. Now I feel like it's
got to be like
holiday.
September, October, yeah.
Yep.
So, but yeah, like it's in a very weird spot, and the thing that I find super fascinating, and this is what the internet is like. Everybody's pointing at Bungie leadership, and rightfully so. But if the tables were turned, similar to the Activision thing, people are like, look at what Microsoft's doing. Like, Sony bought these guys. Like, this is Sony's fault.
But this is a thing. That's why if Herman Host did take over, you don't fucking mention that today, because then
I see your point and I see your thing.
He would not be welcomed as a hero. That's all I'm saying.
Right. But I mean,
and we don't know what like a fixed Bungie looks like.
Right.
We don't have a time machine to like make them Halo come into.
Well, here's the crazy part. This is a studio that obviously makes money and spends money, but has always had drama around it. Not wanting to work on Halo, making Destiny while under a Halo contract, in court about it, to where we've heard everything about Destiny, and then laying off all the story of Destiny 1 having to like be broken and redone and all that stuff. And then it seemed like Destiny 2 was like them kind of coasting for a little bit, and that came out in a shit state in the first year it came out. And then they did, Forsaken, and then they did the seasonal, and they did a free to play, and they broke away from Activision, and they ran into Sony's arms. Like what the hell? Like, it's like Bachelorette for video games.
Always been an ambitious studio, and sometimes that ambition has led to a lot of issues. For
and
them.
we saw the report on Microsoft about why they didn't buy them. The high burn rate.
Yeah.
No shit.
Yeah. And at some time, and as an independent studio, you're more comfortable with a high burn rate because you just want to make the content that you want to make. But then when you're owned by a big studio, that's not what they're interested in. Or a big publisher, a big company. Yeah. A big company just wants to see the numbers go up. They don't want to see you just be steady.
Yeah.
And Bungie did this deal with PlayStation because they were ambitious, probably, and were like, well, we need cash flow to do the crazy things we want to do. And the weird thing is, the crazy thing they wanted to do was a lackluster sounding Marathon and more Destiny 2, which is just like that Ys project must have been cool as shit, or this other IP must have been cool as shit, because I just don't see why you needed the cash flow.
Yeah, but not cool enough to only grab 40 people though. Like that's like
it's
cool, but not enough. Like it's both.
That's why this whole scenario is confusing, because like on paper or talking it out, it doesn't make sense.
If you
It's
walk,
like,
if Michael, if in your position, like just simplified, your company sends you to another building that's struggling, are you going to go there and be like, okay, this half of the room, come with me?
Yeah,
Like,
no, and if you that scenario, and then just also the scenario of just like the 40 people that are now going to have to make
Yeah.
a new studio, it's the case of just like
it's like the Progressive commercial. Who's in charge? Who's the boss?
no, yeah, and just the idea that like you had safety. So I did see a correction that it is more like 40. I think Jason Schreier tweeted out. Someone just said it was 70, but I
Yeah.
believe Jason Schreier tweeted out it's closer to 40.
But it's in the infancy, anyways. There's going to probably be other
Yeah.
people in other studios within Sony that are reallocated to this.
Yeah, but the thing is though, now that you're broken away into Bungie and you're this studio with no name,
Which
I
Sony
feel
which
like-
Sony has a track record of doing, of studios
Yeah,
without names. The team that was working on Last of Us remake didn't have a name.
but what I'm saying is, there's more likely, just like with the other two studios that PlayStation closed, or one studio, if you're not attached to a known IP and you're not a big name studio, PlayStation at any point could be like, we're done. We don't
Mhm.
want to do this. We don't want to pursue this. They literally acquired a studio and closed them earlier. Like
Yeah.
that was the studio's name.
I don't know.
Fire Sprite? No, it was another studio. But either way, there's a likely possibility that PlayStation will see the work that these people are doing and be like, I don't see this being fruitful. We're just going to shut down, and no one's going to know because we never named the studio and the IP you're working on.
My last point on this, and we can move on to playing and watching, and if
Yeah.
you have more, that's fine. Where's the software from all these acquisitions? Where? Whether it's Sony's end or Microsoft ends, like where are the games?
No, and that's the thing is we don't even know like
Fair Games, where is it? Like
Concord's coming.
Eh.
Concord's coming before Fair Games, and they
Right.
were acquired, I think, after.
yeah. So
anyway.
I know we're getting Indiana Jones from Bethesda. I know we're getting what else? We got Hellblade 2. But like
But some of those games were well in development
Right.
before they
and
were
some of them
acquired.
weren't because like we don't have Outer
Yeah.
Wilds 2, Outer Worlds 2.
Worlds.
We don't have Avowed yet. It's across the board. Like all of this money was spent. Where are the return on investments? Like I'm not seeing any of them yet, and I don't care who buys who. And like, sure, like you can say, oh, I don't like corporate consolidation. I don't like corporate people buying, corporate companies buying all this stuff, and the industry consolidating and stuff like that. It was still struggling to produce software when it wasn't consolidated. So, and now all these strikes and all this COVID, like it's all making it worse. Where are the games? Like,
And
just-
and this is the thing that I said a couple months ago, to where I feel like the video game industry needs to reset players' expectations for the size and scope of some of these games.
I
Because the
saw a
games keep
tweet
getting
the other day
bigger.
that Sony's talking about PS6 games already. Stop it.
We didn't even have the Pro yet for the PS5, which is apparently
Stop
still
it.
eventually.
I don't
coming.
want to hear about next gen consoles. I don't want to hear about PS6. I don't want to hear about Xbox Next or whatever the hell it's called. What am I playing in October?
And the problem is the games just keep getting bigger, more and more expensive, and it's just
Michael,
taking
Dragon
forever
Age
to-
is supposed to be out before Thanksgiving.
Well, they did just tweet today that
When is it coming out?
So they did say this month or August they will give a roadmap. Roadmap scares me because it's like it's a single player game.
Yeah.
But they also said a release date will be revealed this month. So like
That's
it sounds like
close.
it's still
That's
it's-
close.
it is, but at least it makes it sound less like it's going to be delayed into next year because they're like we have a release date this August. I know it's still happening.
You got to put $1,000 on the table that Dragon Age comes out in
I already
2024.
told you. I think everyone knows that's listening that I don't think the game's coming out this year, but at least they have an out. They're at least promising a release date this August, and they also like trotted out all the
I saw
the voice actors at
I'm
Comic-Con.
like,
So like
tomorrow morning is August 1st.
that was like the first reply to that tweet.
Yeah.
Of this,
Well,
like,
no, I'm just saying, like we're recording this on Wednesday night, July 31st. August 1st is quote unquote the second half of the year. More than that, in my opinion. But August.
well, it's the 8th month, yeah,
right?
so yeah, it is. It's more than half.
But in my mind, like that's where stuff starts to switch over. Like because the second half of the year is always like September, October, November, so compact. But like it's getting very tight, especially for your Dragon Age fans that are like, I know that you're probably, and I don't want this to be a Dragon Age thing, but like you're expecting some kind of cool collector's edition, right? Like some kind of big like.
That's already, you can pre-order, I think, already.
Okay. All right, so I don't remember. Okay,
but I want to say, man, I'm pretty sure it's the bald guy.
Okay.
Got a statue.
So like, I mean, there's a lot of marketing and stuff that has to be done, and I know marketing the video games is completely different now than it even was 3-4 years ago. But I mean, it's I do not like the current state of the video game industry and how they're functioning. Whether it's a game coming to PS Plus, a game coming to Game Pass, because we're not getting enough time. And then I feel like when they give you too much time, it just inevitably delays, and it's just kind of just dumb. But
yeah,
I want to see
sure
the software.
Like,
I want to see the software. So
yeah.
All right. So while Michael's digging through that, I'm gonna go through real quick of some of my.
It might have been a fever dream.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I don't think it exists because you would have already talked about it and put it in your and said you bought it.
No, I feel like I saw a collector's edition recently that I was just like, I don't need dumpster. I still have like 3 collector's editions sitting behind me somewhere that are sealed.
And by the way, in the end of all of this, like the last thing we need is another Sony studio to say what they're not working on.
After they closed the studio that we're
like,
working on something.
I mean, it's like we don't even know what like your core studios are working on now. You just added another layer to your cake. Like, cool, good job.
Did you not to sidetrack too much, but I don't have much playing and watching.
Yeah.
Did you see all the stores doing the price cuts for the PSVR? I've been kind of tempted. PSVR
I did.
2 down to $350.
Yeah,
like, I was like,
it's like $399 with Horizon. I was like,
yeah,
So
fuck. I was same.
Now I'm taking my Portal back. I'm going to talk about that in a second. I'm taking the Portal back, and that's $200 credit that I've already spent in my mind.
I see, but justifying it right there. Like I could really use a VR headset that I'll use twice.
Yeah. Like,
I'll go first because mine's quick.
Fine.
I didn't really play anything, but I did see Deadpool and Wolverine, which I really enjoyed watching that movie. Probably one of the better multiverse movies out of Marvel, because I think Marvel is one of those things where multiverse has been a curse for Marvel because they clearly don't know what the fuck they're doing with writing and storytelling.
And Robert Downey Jr. and like
which there's some comic lore that they can work with, but it's just like, why would you go that route?
We need to find a guest that can explain this to me. Like, I
might literally couldn't explain it to you, but it'll take too long.
I know, but like that could be a separate episode. I trust somebody else more than I trust you.
I will do a bonus episode where I explain how Robert Downey Jr. makes sense if they go down the one path they're going down, which I think is
So I just picked our next Patreon content. There you go.
Yeah. Okay. Me explaining the mistakes Marvel's doing by following.
That'll be like the only Patreon
episode
episode that Angela listens to start to finish because she's just as confused.
Yeah, I'll get a chart behind me and everything just to explain this stuff. I'm just saying, Robert Downey Jr. is a good actor. He can do
100%.
Doctor Doom pretty well. I just think lore-wise, Victor Von Doom's Victor Von Doom is a good character they could do without doing multiverse shit.
Yeah. I have a question for you before you go even a little farther into your Deadpool Wolverine stuff.
Yeah.
Do I need to see the Deadpools prior to this, and do I need to watch Wolverine? Like, I've watched them. I mean, I haven't watched very much Deadpool because of the weird stuff that was happening where it wasn't Marvel and then it is Marvel. And I know I've watched like Logan.
Logan, I would say, is the only essential that you need to really watch.
So the other Deadpools aren't essential?
Not really. Like like the Deadpool's literally like the side characters from the 2 Deadpool movies are in the movie for maybe like 10-15 minutes.
Okay.
But it ties.
I think that was Angela's concern because we went to the movies this weekend as well for our anniversary, and I was like, "Hey, Deadpool, Wolverine." She's like, "I am not prepped for that."
Yeah, I mean, it would help, but I don't think they're essential. You saw the Fox X-Men movies, right? Back in the day.
Yes.
Yeah, that's pretty much all you kind of need. That and Logan would be very helpful, but for the most part, you're fine just kind of watching it standalone. But yeah, the multiverse stuff is fun in Deadpool. I wouldn't say good, just because there's still like a lot of plot holes that it creates. Because when you do fucking multiverse time travel stuff, it always creates like a dozen plot holes. But they had the most fun with it, because that's one thing I feel like Marvel and Disney have failed to do with multiverse stuff is have fun with it. And this movie definitely did it. Though I will say there's at one point, there was like a 15 to 30 minute gap where I got really tired and sleepy because the movie kind of dragged. I was still laughing during that half hour, but there was one of those things where I can always tell how I'm feeling about a movie if I check the phone for time. There's either two things that come from checking the phone from time. Oh shit, there's not enough time in this movie. It's going to end soon. And shit, I kind of hope this movie just rushes. And I kind of was feeling like I hope it rushes.
Like, damn, it's only 9:45. I got here at 9.
Yeah, it's just like, and I felt like that at one point, but I still enjoyed the movie from beginning to middle and then middle to end. Like there's a little gap right there where I wasn't that into it. But yeah, no, I really enjoyed it. I think it was a perfect send off for like the whole Fox universe, which I think definitely they needed to do just to kind of close the book on that. I know they're going to fuck it up because they're still going to do a bunch of multiverse stuff, but it felt like a nice conclusion to like the Fox universe, and hopefully will lead to a scenario where people aren't hoping to integrate the Fox universe more into the MCU. Because that's still always a problem with how things go. People still love some of those Fox characters, even though some of them were poorly cast.
Well, and I think the fear sets in too, where it ends up being like, oh, there's another movie out. Yeah, but do I have to watch 6 of them to go watch this one? Like, I think that fear of like, there's too much homework for that.
You know? Well, especially when you talk about the Fox stuff, it's just like what counts.
Right.
You know, like they integrate some Fox movies that weren't in the Fox universe directly, specifically with the X-Men.
I think some of the best Marvel movies didn't really have tons of connections to everything else.
Yeah, I would say as the Marvel universe grew, the Marvel universe got worse, and now they've written themselves into a corner where they begged the Russo brothers to come back. Yeah. So now they're going to handle the Avengers movies, and then Robert Downey Jr. is playing another character.
They did a great job building up to Endgame, and then I'm like, okay, you're done, and they're like, oh no, we're not. And I'm like, oh, stop.
Well, no, and that's the problem is like they were for 10 years, Marvel was building up to a single storyline's conclusion. Once they completed the story, they didn't know what to do. And there was also a good chunk of the fan base that was like, I've grown attached to these characters for 10 years. Please don't take them away. And Marvel's answer is multiverse. Yeah. No one's alive. No one's dead.
Or they tease like the 17-year-old Iron Man. You're like, I don't want that one.
Like... No. And that led to Marvel just running into a thing where they didn't understand, or Disney didn't understand, like, are people attached to the IP or to the actor? And the answer was both.
Right. Well, it's also like the main reason that Avengers, the video game, failed. That's not my Iron Man. That's not my Captain America. Like,
and now we're the thing. Like, there's a running joke in Deadpool and Wolverine where Deadpool says to Wolverine, like, or to the actor breaking fourth wall, it's just like, you're playing Wolverine till you're 90. And it's a constant running joke where that's said, and it feels like that when it comes to Robert Downey Jr. now, where it's like, you're in this fucking universe till you're 90, and I fully expect like Captain America, Chris Evans, to come back in like 5-10 years and be like, I'm Cap again. Why? Oh, fucking multiverse. Like Scarlett Johansson will probably come back to Black Widow after a couple years after their lawsuit settles. I know the lawsuit already settled, but like they got there's bad blood now, but after a couple years
they're waiting for the ink
again.
To dry a little bit. So
yeah, and then they'll be back, and you know, we'll have a reset again, and that's why I think Disney's so desperate to keep the multiverse going, is because they're like, well, we'll get those actors back, and we need to be able to explain it, and we're just in like this creative rut when it comes to that stuff. Hopefully they'll be able to fix it with Secret Wars in 2026, which also feels like there's no way that movie's coming out.
I don't even know what that is.
It has a lot to do with Doctor Doom. Like, I don't know. The MCU feels like a mess. Deadpool, Wolverine, still worth watching. Still a good movie. Yeah.
All right. That's it for me. So like I just mentioned a little bit earlier, Angela and I celebrated our 23rd wedding anniversary on the 28th. So there's some stuff that we did for that. Post-Toronto dinner, movie, that kind of just basic stuff.
Because Toronto was a real anniversary.
Yeah, it just coincided with the Tigers being in Toronto. And it just didn't line up with our anniversary stuff. But it all worked out in general. So, but we went and saw Twisters. Very interesting, same thing. Like I expected more connection to the first movie, and I almost feel like I want to say there was like none.
I mean, the actors passed away.
I know, but like there wasn't
yeah.
even really any kind of callback, like, and like not the whole cast. Like I don't think everybody
Well,
that acted in that movie. Like I don't really feel like
you're like the tornado didn't return. I'm
yeah,
very
it's just
upset.
like, so I mean, there was a little bit like there was like Dorothy's in it, and but it just I felt like it could have just done a little bit of a better job, unless I completely
is
missed
that
it.
original character from the first?
Dorothy was
Twister?
the technology that they used that they put in
Oh,
the
okay,
tornado,
yeah.
the little bugs or little things that they put in the tornado.
I didn't even know it was that deep.
Yeah, so
I saw Twister when I was a kid. Like,
yeah, I think Angela and I
25
recently
years
have
ago,
seen it
whatever.
in the last 6 months or something. So I think Owen wanted to watch it. So, but overall, I thought it was a solid movie, good pacing, pretty cool effects, kind of how they were doing. I wasn't like didn't walk out of there like that sucked. So I bet I didn't walk out of there like, oh, that's amazing, I want to see that again or anything like that. So more college football 25 for me. I'm in an online dynasty on Xbox. Getting ready to just I'm struggling with the game a little bit, so I'm kind of giving our community a little bit of time to get to get their feet a little bit more wet. And we'll start our dynasty soon. Just still kind of waiting to see if I would like one or two more players, and we've got to kind of really hash out what we want to do, if we want to cap how high of a school you can use, because there's definitely advantages to 5-star universities in that game. Significant advantages to going on the road and playing games like it. This is not a Madden clone. I mean, I haven't played Madden in a while, but this is not a Madden clone. I'm very
Jonathan plays Madden, right?
yeah. He not recently. I mean, I haven't.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So, but there's a couple other people that I communicate with that played Madden regularly, and this is not. This is a really, really, really good football sim. Like this is kind of like Gran Turismo versus Need for Speed, if you ask me right now, in terms of comparing driving games and stuff. The recruiting is super deep, super cool. Developing your players, turning them into seeing a 2-star, go through training and develop into like a high overall player for you, a Heisman candidate for you. Trying to make your stadium a harder place to play. The depth is there. It's still got a couple quirks to it that they're working through. But just as an example, today before we recorded, I jumped on to play a random online game because I got to get myself a little bit better. And there was like 750,000 people playing on a Thursday night online. That doesn't include the people that aren't online. Like, so I'll be really curious. Like, do we ever get EA earnings? I know we don't cover it.
Yeah, no, we do.
Okay. Yeah.
They usually do, but they're usually boring because it's just FIFA and Madden
I'll be
money,
very
so.
curious to see what they talk about with college football in terms of these earnings based on some of the player counts. And like we talked about last week, I'll be very curious to see if we see a bump in any hardware sale from any company. With when this came out.
I have a feeling it's going to be one of those things where all PlayStation and Xbox will
correct.
both see
I agree.
an increase.
Yeah. Remote play update. I'm going to return the Portal. I think it is significantly too specialized. Does that make sense? Like it can't. I forgot that Xbox had remote play that I can use on the ROG. And then I'll have to find the exact name of it, but I did buy the app that cost like $13 or something like that. The PS, and that seemed to work better. However, the last time I tried to connect, I couldn't connect. I've got a lot of stuff going on right now as I've been trying to play my, I bought an HDMI switch because I have too many things plugged into my TV in my living room right now, and that's not working like I want to because I was afraid to plug my Roku soundbar into that, and so I'm trying to work through that minutia. So those, I bought one that Palmer recommended, and it seems to be working great, but there's a little small hiccups that I have with it because now I want to play my Xbox and play my PlayStation, and the Xbox was in another room for a little while, and so I'm struggling with some of those things. But the main reason that I started focusing heavily on remote play was recruiting does take time in college football. Not a significant amount of time. You can spend less on it if you want, but the more time you spend on it, the better your results are going to be.
Dave was on a toilet. Like, I could be recruiting.
I'm more or less like getting ready to go to sleep, or like I don't take that thing into the bathroom. I don't trust myself enough.
Just so you know, so EA did an earnings call a couple days ago. So the only thing they were able to say with college football is they had 5 million unique players during the first week.
That's
the next earning call from EA is in the middle of September, I believe.
Okay.
So we'll find out in 2 months exactly what.
Did they tout any other concurrent players for any other game, or is that just the main thing they were talking about?
5 million unique players during the first week, with 500,000 playing via the EA Play trial. So 500,000 people jumped on the trial for EA Play to play
Right.
college football, which means they probably saw an increase in subs.
Correlated, if I had to guess, 80% of that correlated with Game Pass subscribers because you get EA Play for free with that.
Potentially, yeah.
EA Play is grouped with. I don't. Well, maybe the Madden people have EA Play or something like that, because you get that 10-hour trial.
It'd be one of those things where EA Play is also on PlayStation, I believe now.
It is,
so it's one of those things where.
But you have to buy it.
But if you're EA, you're not going to differentiate.
Correct. Yeah.
The things, you're just going to be like, they were on our shit.
But 500,000 people trying your game. I wonder what the capture rate on that was. That's what I'd want to know.
That would be interesting, because you probably have a lot of people that are like, I haven't played one of these in a while. Let me see if it's good.
And I think you get to play for 10 hours.
Yes, 10 hours. And then do you get a slight discount?
Yes.
Off EA Play?
Yeah, because when I bought it on Xbox, it was like 10% off. So it was like $62 or something like that. So, but yeah, so I'm very impressed with this remote play app for PlayStation. I'm very impressed with the Xbox's remote play. Xbox connectivity for remote play seems to be more consistent. However, I think that I just need to figure out the little small things, the tips and tricks that, like, I think leaving games like quick resume or whatever PlayStation has versus Xbox has, like, that affects remote play because the game's already running when then you're trying to launch the game again. So there's a couple things that are in that, and making sure everything stays in rest mode and stuff. Like, those are some of the hurdles that I'm experiencing momentarily, and I call them hurdles or growing pains. So, but I started doing a little bit of comparison, and the reason why the Portal's going back is, like, I understood what it was, and I respect exactly what it is, but then I'm comparing weights. I'm like, okay, this is not that much heavier, and then I took the plunge and bought the $14 or $15 app. Never once got that data connection lag thing that I was getting on the Portal. Now I don't know if that's because the ROG can run it better, but usually the connection is connection based. I still have not tried the whatever you called it to plug into the wall to hardwire my console.
Oh yeah, the power line adapter.
Yeah. So. But that's primarily it for playing and watching. We didn't get any questions this week, so again, obviously we had a couple questions in the chat about the Sony Bungie stuff, but you can always send us stuff using hashtag AskDigitalDays. You can follow the main account at DigitalDaysPod. You can follow Michael at TheFirstMJC. You can follow myself at GoodDaveHunt. We have a Facebook group, fairly active. We have a Discord server that we're kind of trying to push more people into that. So please consider joining that Discord server and checking that stuff out. And we, there's I'm sure there'll be plenty of conversations going on in there. You can post your questions in there. You can have conversations in there. There's collections in there. You can post your stuff you're buying. Roy, you should really put some stuff in there. I got to see your collection. You should really post that stuff in there. You could give Palmer a run for his money, just for the record.
Looking at collections because I got a wish list app, and I'm just like, I need that game too.
Yeah. So. Please consider posting that. Anybody that has any kind of cool setups for their stuff, go ahead and post that. I'm still working on, I know you guys want to see it, and some of it is still in transition, but my shoe collection and hat collection continues to grow. So I can try to one day post some of those pictures. I'm trying to get some other Jordans to come out this weekend, some of the Olympic stuff that's coming out. So, but yeah, please, check those out. Join the community, hang out in there. Voice channels work great. Text channels work great. Pictures and everything everything kind of clumped in there, really, really nice and much more categorized than Facebook. I'm still a fan of Facebook, and I'm not like opposed to it, but I just think the categorization that Discord offers is much easier to monitor, maintain, and to look for what you're interested in. And then again, it's just like we mentioned, patreon.com/digitaldaysgaming, where you can join Patreon and support us. Thank you for those who have already supported us monetarily through that. You do have a relatively new piece of content. It's about 2 or 3 weeks old, and it sounds like that we just picked something else out that we'll schedule a time this month, or August, not this month, it ends today, but in the month of August to record that.
Give me like 2 weeks to put some documents together.
I thought you just needed a dry erase board and you'd be good to go.
I gotta go into my bin of comics and pull out a comic or two, reread it.
All right. So, other than that, you got anything else?
No. We'll be back next week unless there's no news. Like,
Yeah, we almost didn't
we
record
almost-
this week until Bungie released their statement this morning. So
yeah. So we'll see everyone next week potentially, or not. We'll see you in 2 weeks. Who knows?
Yeah.
It's a
all right,
mystery.
I hope everyone has a great week. Keep moving forward.
Don't be a dick. See ya. All right.
228. Oh, I forgot I watched Cobra Kai too. But oh well. Talk about that next week. All right. Those of you that are hanging out in the chat, appreciate you guys hanging out. Thank you for coming in. And we will talk to you guys next week or soon. Thanks for hanging out.